All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Stefan Harrer. I'm the director of the AI for Science program at Australia's National Science Agency, CSIRO. This week, I'm at NeurIPS 2023. It's the center of the AI universe for 1 week. A lot of interesting discussions. Not only academia is here at force, but also tech developers and the world of industry. So I've spent a lot of time yesterday at NVIDIA's booth on the exhibition floor and heard a lot of exciting things, amongst other ideas about the application of generative AI in the drug discovery and drug design space. So I thought this is a really interesting topic. I'd like to dig deeper and have the great pleasure of actually talking to Kimberly Powell, the Vice President of Healthcare at NVIDIA. Hi, Kimberly. How are you doing?
Hi, Stefan. I'm great. Thank you so much for taking some time. It's an awesome time of the year to round out a whole year. We're about 1 year mark from ChatGPT, and you're at the AI conference of the world. And as we were just talking about, there's a complete workshop dedicated to what AI is doing for the field of drug discovery. So exciting times for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I can't wait to be at that workshop tomorrow. But today, I'm actually really pleased about the opportunity to pick your brain and learn a little more about NVIDIA's plans in that space around generative AI and drug discovery. So, what I'd really be interested in outright is what do you think are the biggest opportunities for generative AI to bring impactful change to medicine and biotech?
Yeah, I mean, that's a medicine and biotech. That's a lot of things. I'm going to focus on today, unless we want to go other areas, is really the art, if you will, of bringing a new drug to market. As many people know, this is a very, very challenging problem and has existed to be in the same realm of challenge for many decades now. You know, it takes 10 years to bring a new drug to market. It costs about $2 billion. And a lot of drugs that they try to put into the clinical phase, they have essentially a 90% failure rate. So that's one, the problem space is obviously very complex because you have very large companies spending a lot of money. Apparently, there's $250 billion that is spent globally every year on pharmaceutical R&D, and we haven't really been able to change the game. Now, what is so exciting about right here, right now, is, NVIDIA for the last 15 years since I've been at the company, we've been working with the medical device and life science instrument companies across the globe, inventing new sensor technologies to measure biology at lots of different scales. Some of those instruments are genomic sequencers, for example. These genomic sequencers are, generating unprecedented amounts of data, terabytes of data a day per instrument, right? And so we're walking into, over the last 5 years, being able to use robotics to essentially automate the process of generating this data, so these labs can run 24/7, generating terabytes per instrument a day. We are at a place where we were, 2012, when we were taking all these pictures and videos with our phones. We're here now with biology data. Okay, we're here with all this biology data at the exact same moment that the world has invented generative AI and GPT, transformer models, general pre-trained transformers, being able to take a ton of unlabeled data and train very, very large models. And these models have capabilities that were unforeseen just even a few years ago. So we have the data, we have these new methods, these GPT methods and models. And then what NVIDIA has been doing for the last 15 years as well is pioneering accelerated computing. Accelerated computing is what gave way to the ability to train those convolutional neural nets. AlexNet was done on a single GPU back in 2012. And then you fast forward to 2020, and it took an entire data center to train GPT-3. It took 1 million times more compute power to go from AlexNet to GPT-3. And so NVIDIA has been learning and building and building the huge data center scale of capability, AI supercomputers, to make this euphoric moment, the 3 ingredients necessary, which is data, methods, and compute to really bring this capability in earnest to this field. And I think, we have a lot of evidence this is happening and happening quite rapidly now. The DeepMind team, AlphaFold 2, a stunning success of how you can use these type of methods with all that structural biology data that we generated from the instruments over decades and go from a tiny little database of protein structures, call it 20,000 to 200 million essentially overnight, right? Solving what was otherwise decades-long problem in the area of structure prediction, right? So that really opened up people's minds to, this is going to become possible. And so if you think about drug discovery itself, what are you trying to do in drug discovery? You're trying to understand or crack the biology. What is going on in the biology? You're then trying to identify a lead molecule. That could be a chemical compound, it could be protein, identify that lead, and then you're trying to optimize the two of those things interacting such that it changes the behavior of the biology in a way that stops it or causes the disease to not progress, right? And so here we are at this moment where we have these models that in natural language we've witnessed, they can take the world's data, okay, and represent it and synthesize it in a way that you can reason across data sets that are just unimaginable. And so this same capabilities here. And so AlphaFold laid the foundation for the possibility and cracked an incredible problem. And so what NVIDIA decided to set out to do is how can we accelerate the ability to not only invent models, to customize models that are being built by this amazing NeurIPS and academic community, and then put those models into production so that we can imagine giving this brand new tool to the drug discovery industry.
And that's actually what I've been seeing, right? So NVIDIA Clara is a GPU accelerated computational drug discovery platform which you have built, and that combines all these amazing things that you have referred to, data analytics, simulation, visualization, to support all aspects of the workflow in the drug development cycle. And you've also referred to what's commonly referred to as the pharma dilemma, right? The fact that ever more investment is being made, but what comes out at the end in terms of approved drugs on the market does not quite scale that way. So do you think with this perfect storm that you've just described, essentially, right? The data, the hardware, the software, the models, do you think with the tools that you're now developing and providing, there's a fighting chance here to actually turn that pharma dilemma on its head and get back to a sustainable cycle of investment and output?
I absolutely do, and there's several reasons why you could imagine that being the case. If you look at the drug discovery process, a lot of it is driven by physical experiments. Okay, physical experiments, they're going to be limited by the humans that set up the experiments, the humans that can interpret the experiments, and you could, if you look at just the complexity of the problem, right? There's 10 to the 60 potential chemical compounds in the world. It's more than particles in the universe, okay? Then there's 10 to the 160 potential proteins in the world that could also be, a therapeutic target. And so you have this like almost infinite combinatorial problem, right? And so there's no way that we are going to be able to do the traditional design, make, test, analyze through humans and physical experiments and imagine that we're going to explore that space well enough, right? And so what these methods do is they allow us to do a massive amount more of exploration, right? And so a lot of this evidence is starting to come through. Amgen has recently talked about they are starting to use generative AI methods in front of an experimental process to do two things, okay? Generative AI models are presenting a lot of different capabilities I'll touch on too. One is to generate new ideas that are really just outside human capacity. You as a chemist would never have intuitively gone there, but an AI model is generating ideas for you that are sort of outside where you would typically go. And then you have models that can predict the properties in which you care most about. So they're generating a massive amount of ideas, and then they're doing predictions against those generated molecules to say, give me the ones that have these properties that are most likely to be successful. At which point they then do the experiment. So they're essentially setting up a much more intelligent experiment. And then after they run the experiment, they're getting ground truth data that they can feed back into the models, and they can feed this very fortuitous flywheel of intelligence. And a lot of the industry is calling this lab in the loop. And so you still have the
I
ground
like
truth,
that.
you still have the ground truth experiments going on. We're not completely trusting the AI, but the AI is helping us drive much more intelligent experiments. So potentially you do fewer experiments, and you're exploring a much, much larger space as a result. And so they've had and published results that for antibody discovery, something that would normally take them 2 years, and then what comes out is really a 50%, clinical chance that it's a clinical candidate, to 9 months and 90% chance it's a clinical candidate. So they're shaving mass of the time, and they're increasing that probability of success. And that's really what the industry needs to do, right? Honestly, the first thing we need to do is improve the probability of success. And I think the main reason intuitively you could say why generative AI is going to do that is because it lets you see so much more. It essentially lets you experience so much of this vast space on a shorter time scale that you should be more likely to come out with a better candidate. And then, of course, what you're going to see tomorrow in the workshop is just, the number of models that are being developed, and they are getting much more sophisticated. So, AlphaFold absolute breakthrough structure prediction. As I said, we can do any kind of generation. We can predict properties. We can predict the interactions, the complex of molecules interacting. We can even, you're seeing papers come out, do de novo design with models. They're literally coming up with novel designs by using a generative AI model. So they're getting more and more complex, employing all of the diffusion model techniques, these amazing transformers. They're scaling up in their size, because just like we saw GPTs, as we were able to increase the size of the models, their capabilities grew. So we're really right at the beginning here. But as I watching what comes out of NeurIPS is always setting the tone, and I think you're going to see this massive explosion. And I'll be talking at the JP Morgan Health Conference in a couple of weeks, and I've actually charted out. Yeah, I've charted out this explosion, and when you visually see it, you're like, okay, we are at the start of something big.
Yeah, that's actually, I heard, Sam Altman was actually talking on stage at my alma mater, the Technical University of Munich, a few weeks ago, and he talked about the Cambrian explosion, right, of opportunities that come. So this is a very nice example of and there's actually evidence out there that what you just referred to is actually happening, right? So there's a lot of discussion around InSilico Medicine. I think a company that you're partnering with. They are a generative AI trailblazer, and I think you are in a partnership with them. I think just a few months ago, NVIDIA also invested in $50 million, I think, in Recursion Pharmaceuticals to accelerate models in AI-enabled drug discovery. So these are all signs that I think show that what you just laid out is actually really getting traction on the ground, and that we're actually seeing outputs of and evidence for that this development, this Cambrian explosion, is actually playing out in the drug development space. Can you describe a little bit how these collaborations, these partnerships, what role they play for you and your agenda of driving and pushing the role of generative AI in drug discovery and design, and give us maybe a preview on a couple other such success stories that might be cooking under the hood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so as you mentioned about NVIDIA Clara, that's our platform for across healthcare. And what we've done is we've gotten even more domain specific in the area of biology, and we've developed and created this platform for foundation models in biology called BioNeMo. And BioNeMo is essentially an end-to-end workflow process to provide the capabilities for very large-scale foundation model development. It also gives you the capability. So you think about all these companies, whether they're large pharma and they have hundreds of years, some of them, of data that is proprietary to them, that is, very, very important data to them. They can now imagine putting those into their own foundation model. Okay, and having the capabilities that we just described, really, the massive amount of many, many decades of intelligence sort of represented in those models, and being able to build a whole bunch of downstream tasks from that. So, build a foundation model. They're constantly doing experiments, so they want to continuously fine tune and update and adapt those models for what they're learning and what their scientists are driving. And then they want to put these models into production at scale. As I said, if you can generate me, a billion potential molecules, and then I want to predict all of them for, these types of different properties because I'm going to go test them in the lab. They want to do that at massive scale, and so we're helping the world not have to think about all the computer science that has to go on for processing the data, right? Luckily, all this biology data is represented in sequences of characters, which lends itself very well to the foundation that the natural language community has laid for us. But it still requires a lot of domain-specific translation of that data, fitting that data. It's 3 billion characters long. These tools have never seen something, with a sequence length that long, right? So what are the ways that we can, make the data loading easy? What are the model architectures that matter for different modalities? Small molecules different than, antibodies, different than enzymes, right? And so what are the model architectures that matter? So we put that into the tooling. And then we stand these up as APIs. So they're just super easy to incorporate and use. And so the collaborations that we have oftentimes are either with a large pharma or this new category of companies, we call tech bios. I didn't make up that term, but where they're data driven first, and they have, they build AI platforms to drive pipelines, either their own or those that they license, right? And so whether they're building it internally at somewhere, Amgen that we've talked about, or Genentech that we just announced a partnership with, we are there for them to essentially help them represent their crown jewels, their deep science understanding, and put it into these digital tools, these foundational tools that will allow them to discover quicker, or to improve the potential probability of success, right? Or to explore a much, much larger space. So that the partnerships are really about accelerating their capabilities to take advantage of this absolute breakthrough technology. And that is anything from building foundation models, adapting the foundation models, or putting those foundation models into production. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And not only does it make sense, I mean, just yesterday, Nature announces every year, like the 10 most influential people in science, right? And this year, it was 9 people and 1 not a person identity, right? Which was actually GPT-4, right? And they wrote at length about the transformative role that it plays as a tool for scientists, right? To transform their workflows, to actually make life easier, right? To lower the digital burden for tasks that you. So it makes not only perfect sense. I think what you described there is really one of the key future applications and roles that generative AI plays in the field of science, right? It's really a transformative tool that we see being rolled out in many domains, and this is also, by the way, the work that I'm doing, right? So this is the program that we are driving here in CSIRO in Australia, and it's something that I think spreads like a virus, right? People start to really realize and understand this massive potential that it brings. Do you then, do you see these tools that you develop, and you mentioned BioNeMo? I think there's also another one, MegaMol BART, which you've built, and these platforms, they're empowering researchers and scientists in academia and industry. What is your plan to roll these out across other scientific domains as well, or do you see them being specific to the healthcare domain and the life sciences spectrum?
No, NVIDIA has a huge effort, and we are absolutely world class in many other areas. BioNeMo is actually it's a full set of pre-trained models, it's frameworks, it's cloud API services and managed services. It's a lot of things. It's actually built off of something more core at NVIDIA called NeMo. And if you trace back NeMo's heritage, the reason GPT-3 was possible is what's at the core of NeMo. We helped the world actually make that happen, right? So NVIDIA has also is also of course, in the area of doing a very similar play for all of natural language, understanding. So the enterprises of the world, right? Where NVIDIA plays is every enterprise has their own proprietary data, and that is their most valuable data. And so we want to give them, again, the same capabilities of what you can experience in ChatGPT, or the same capabilities of copilots, and be able to build them and run and deploy them themselves. Because this is the future. Everybody's enterprises run a little differently. Their data is very proprietary. The way they run their service organization, the dynamical changes that affect their businesses is very unique to each enterprise. And so they're going to have to become AI factories inside themselves. And so we create the same tooling and end-to-end workflow for every enterprise to stand up an AI factory. And so we're doing that in the enterprise world, and we've done it for the AI drug discovery world. We're the AI factory for building models and hopefully being able to pump out a lot more drugs that are discovered, helping the world do that factory part. Like that is what their asset is. It's a newly discovered drug. And so how can we help them set up that factory? So we do it there. We get to take a ton of those learnings that we're doing in that market that's moving really fast, and we get to inject a lot of that learnings in. And then secondarily, by working with the ecosystem, by working with the academic community, the Genentechs and Amgens and Recursions and InSilicos of the world, we infuse the domain-specific needs, into the BioNeMo platform. So we get the beauty of NVIDIA making supremely large investments on natural language, and then we have our ecosystem collaborations, which is very domain specific. We bring that together, and that's what's going to accelerate the ability for us to engage this industry. And I think why these partnerships are really coming fast and furious now.
Yeah, wonderful. So it's really a scalability of the approach to building these tools, and then the ecosystem to really make them flourish. And that can't wait to see where you're really taking this. But a question that I also have on top of this is, so for drug discovery and design, this is at the very beginning of the drug development cycle, and there is a lot of downstream regulation and safety measures in place when it comes to clinical trial evaluation and so forth. So that's a good assurance, but nevertheless, with tools like the ones that you just described that have so much power and that scale so efficiently into other domains, we also need to think about how we can ethically and responsibly design them, develop them, test them. Trustworthiness is very important, because if you don't have that, and tools might be very powerful, but if people and users don't trust them, they won't scale the way. So can you describe a little bit how NVIDIA supports and drives the responsible development and use of AI technology, and particularly the one that you described here for development of drug discovery, design, and development copilots?
Yeah, I think there's two points I'll make here. So I appreciate the question, and it's a very real case. In the case of the discovery of a new drug, or they call them new molecular entity, right? Our philosophy is, how do we provide this to the people who do this every single day, day in and day out, as just a new tool? As I said, lab in the loop. There still remains an experiment. You have to physically observe it for it to progress in the pipeline that they have a well-established, well-oiled machine to do, right? So we're not changing those safeguards that exist in drug discovery. What we are doing is bringing them a new capability, okay? And so, and we're giving it to the experts in the field, right? And so in that way, it's changing nothing. In fact, it's just changing their capability and their speed and their likelihood of success. The real problem, as you highlight, is, as we say, the failure rate when we get into clinical trial. So one thing we hope these tools will help us put in something that is much more likely to succeed. But the other challenge is it really comes around clinical trials. And if you read Peter Lee's book, AI Revolution in Medicine, they highlight a lot of this, is that we have such a hard time finding the right patients, finding them at all, and then finding the right patients so that clinical trials can succeed, or we can predict when they're not going to succeed and make adjustments in that way. So clinical trials remain the absolute safeguard. I believe natural language, by being able to look, not with just a human capacity, but with our, these new natural language tool capacity to find those patients where they are anywhere in the world, so that they can be appropriately enrolled in this. Those are things that I think are going to be also completely revolutionary to our ability to bring safe and effective drugs to the market under the existing, ways that we do it today, right? So I think in that way, one is we're not changing the process by these new tools, and then secondarily, clinical trials will remain. We have a huge opportunity to make them much, much better and find those patients who would not otherwise never find the trial, or find those patients that are most fit for the trial. Right, because what the FDA doesn't want to see is all these adverse effects, but maybe you picked the wrong, patient in the first place, right? So the massive opportunity there, and I think that putting this into the hands of the experts is also the way that you ensure that they've been living and breathing this regulatory and safety process their whole life. So we don't make any assumptions about that. We're just empowering them.
That's right, and I think you said it there, right? The potential, the opportunity is immense, right? So we really, if we can think about what this technology can do, if we really develop and deploy it responsibly, it is fascinating, right? So we almost have an obligation to do all of this to make sure that we don't waste this technology, right? That we can actually really bring it to humanity and help it really, find new drugs and help people lead a healthier and better life. So this is really great. That resonates a lot with me, and I see your booth is actually pretty much right next to the AstraZeneca booth, who I think you also work together. So I'll quiz those guys tomorrow a little bit more, and I'm going to go to that workshop as well. But for now, I would say thanks so much for sharing all these thoughts. I mean, it's really refreshing and absolutely invigorating to just get that glimpse under the hood and see what's going on there. I think NVIDIA is in a very interesting and powerful position to drive this development at the forefront. And I can really only imagine how many more of these opportunities we'll probably have in the future to talk about some of the new success stories, some of the latest plans that you have. And as we do that, see how generative AI shapes the future of what we all do. And it is like they always say, right? We tend to constantly underestimate what the future brings because we are humans, right? We are projecting what comes out based on what we've seen, and of course we always get it wrong because we extrapolate linearly, and we are actually more on a hockey stick curve here.
Exactly.
And that field is on a hockey stick curve on steroids, but it makes me actually feel really encouraged to see that such an important player like NVIDIA is taking these steps and actually drives this field responsibly and with so much strategic plan and foresight. So thanks a lot for this, Kimberly. I will think of all this when I go to the workshop tomorrow, and I hope we can connect sometime in the future again.
You bet, Stefan. I mean, there's no more important area for us to apply such a powerful technology than for health, right? And so I'm really delighted. It was a joy to talk to you, democratizing it, putting into the hands of every scientist, every researcher, so that, I don't like to think linearly at all. Like I told you about 1,000,000x of compute power that we needed to get to this stage. In the future, if this lab in the loop is so good and it only takes 10 minutes and it only costs $10, you and I will have personalized medicine. That's what the future is when you don't think linearly, when you think absolutely million times different than it's done today. Maybe we can get there someday in our lifetime.
I will add nothing to that. That was a perfect finishing statement. Thank you so much.
Great
Thanks
to
a lot,
meet you.
Kimberly.
Have a great rest of your NeurIPS. Cheers. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.